My wife had a very difficult situation. We had a miscarriage and it went so terribly bad that she even went into hypovolemic shock. And this is kind of a story of karma. Beforehand, I had crazy thoughts about what if I were to become a single parent and how would I organize that? It was like, hey, why am I thinking that? Like, get out. Those thoughts all led up to the point where the whole thing happened and she was rushed into the hospital.
I can't really classify it as good or bad. If we take it too far, we're stepping into a realm where we just say, oh, the car accident that you were in, that was divine. You could even see all of the bad things. Maybe they were paralyzed. That's going to be seen as bad by the human, but then they do Joe Dispenza meditations, they do your energy healing practices, they heal themselves 10 years down the line. So that was like a catalyst for their own awakening.
Instead of stepping into the story of it or the sense of I'm doing this because XIZ, start looking into the here and now and curiously look inside, like, where does this arise from? Where does it originate out in the here and now?
Where do you believe humanity is going? Welcome to the Mind, Body, Spirit podcast. I'm with an amazing guest here, Diederik van der Boor, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's a practitioner from Healing in Practice, and he uses energy vortex healing techniques. So thank you for coming on the show, Diederik.
Welcome. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. And if you want to take us into just a little bit about your awakening journey so we can understand where you're coming from and then how you've healed through that process.
All right. Well, it's quite all right. But in a summary, I didn't have the most easy childhood at all, right? And that means being bullied at school, but also things at home and even being abused physically through spanking. And it all kind of led to this whole sense of me in adolescence being kind of looking for a feeling, how would I say it, as if it was kind of a misbaked cookie from the factory. And luckily, I also came in contact with Reiki. And it was my first sense of, hey, there is something out there that's larger than me, that's supporting me in a way. And it kind of turned that whole mindset around of, hey, there is even though I am in a very difficult place, there's something I can do about my life to make it better. That's kind of, at 15 or 16 years old, that started my journey towards improving and self-work. And of course, over time, in that growing process, I was looking for something deeper and something more. Because although it kind of kept symptoms at bay, it wasn't really addressing the childhood pain that I had. In some way, I had even forgotten about it, kind of pushed it away with the sense of my life is pretty okay now and it's running really nice, and that's a thing of the past. Which kind of doesn't work, and everyone in therapy space or personal healing space knows that that's not how it's going to work. Because as soon as I was about to become a father, the whole experience and everything came back. So I had a lot of healing to do from there. And that's been a kind of a 5-year-long journey now. And just a few years before that, I came in contact with something called VortexHealing Divine Energy Healing, which kind of turbocharged the way I can do healing and add so much more depth that it was key to healing my own childhood pain in a way. And supplemented with some psychotherapy sessions, about 12 or something, and some family therapy things. But overall, the therapy kind of cut to a lot of mind things or beliefs I had about myself. And the vortex healing techniques helped me to process a lot of the pain and the trauma. So that's kind of the bird's eye overview right there.
Could you take us through the vortex healing, divine energy healing? What is that?
So, well, with any kind of healing, right, there's a sense of there's something larger or something beyond physical reality that we're dealing with, or beyond
Mhm.
the sense of 3D reality that we have with atoms and molecules and everything. So with Reiki, I would say you tap into an existing energy that's already there. It's kind of supplemented by a deeper process, but it's very easy to tap into. That's what makes it very easy to learn, easy to teach. With Vortex Healing, we tap into something beyond the whole sense of manifested universe. We tap into what I would call divinity or the divine. And from there, something is being manifested and through the human energy system to support a healing process. And in a metaphor, I compare it to like a fireman holding a hose, where the water is always doing the work. And the healing energies or whatever you kind of manage to source is doing the work. But I
Mhm.
still need to aim it properly and know where to look for and what to do. And that's kind of where a lot of knowledge comes in. And in the event that I might aim it totally inappropriate, there's always someone closing the main valve, and basically I'm empty-handed with a fire hose not doing anything. Right? That's kind of the beauty of energy healing with a divine support behind you. You're
Mhm.
always, it's possible to do amazing things, but only if they're appropriate. And so in my healing sessions, that also becomes a source of information of someone is in a difficult situation, but what can be addressed first? What can't be addressed yet? Like where does energy flow? Where doesn't it flow?
Mhm.
And in that way, I kind of start seeing a picture of what's happening with someone inside and start naming the things that you're dealing with and then applying the vortex healing technique there.
Could could uh, could we go a little bit more in depth on? It sounds like there's the kind of divine, the unmaterialized dimensions of our reality that are outside of our current time space dimensions, and you're
Mm-hmm.
tapping into this infinite kind of unmanifested realm where all is divine. Would you classify our current time space dimensions as divine, divinity flowing through all that is, or would there
Yeah.
be like separation between the two?
I think you can, depending on how you look, you see either or the other. Right? In a way, if you were to go, and then we talk about awakening in different terminology, right? Of the process of returning back to the deeper sense of self
Hmm.
and losing the distortions in between that kind of give manifest to the sense of ego and the sense of personality. If you go all the way back and you find the divine source in everything, you kind of see it as being both transcendent as, but at the same time as a manifested reality. It's
Hmm.
um, so in a way, it feels like for me the Hinduism definitions of Brahman and things kind of seem really fitting, like divine in everything. And at the same time, it's you have to look at the practical side of if you take a poison, you can't say, well, it's also divine, so it's okay, right? There's always the relative world where a tiger is still something to look out for, no matter whether it's originally deep down inside divine or not, right? So there's both the transcendent divine and the play of relative reality that we always live in.
Yeah, it sounds like there's been some misconceptions in the non-duality community versus the duality community, which non-duality is basically all is divine, and we're almost, if we take it too far, we're stepping into a realm where we just say, "Oh, the car accident that you were in, like that was divine," and it's not really taking a deep look at the human condition within
Yeah.
that car accident, because you could even see all of the bad things. Like you could see it from a higher perspective, like maybe they were paralyzed and that's going to be seen as bad by the human. But then let's say they do Joe Dispenza meditations, they do your energy healing practices, and they do sessions with us, and they heal themselves 10 years down the line. So that was like a catalyst for their own awakening. So I can't really classify it as good or bad, but it's coming from a non-dual perspective where I can say, you know, I understand your experience. I want to hear about your experience. I want to see how you're feeling, and I want to move to the lighter side of that. So it's moving from that darkness, transforming the darkness of that situation. And that's ultimately, I believe, the goal of everything we're here to do, is to transmute that darkness into light, and seeing it through your lens of all is divine, but still coming back to the human perspective seems fitting here, versus kind of the dual perspective where, you know, you see things as opposites and you say that's good and that's bad. And it's like a black and white, which I don't fully agree with that. I think that's what we're here to transcend. And when you transcend it, you're coming back to a point of balance and you're seeing both sides simultaneously. So
Yeah, and transcendence is often misunderstood as stepping out of things. But you
yeah,
would almost say it's more seeing a larger whole, but it still includes the part that you are kind of in before. So, yeah, even a car accident or even horrible things could, in that, like you say, be a catalyst or be the best thing that ever happened to you. But I wouldn't ever say that to someone who is still in pain, who is still suffering, who's having a difficult life, because you're not meeting someone where they're at. You're not attuned to where someone is. And I think that's there are three things that are important. It's like yeah, being loving, being caring, following the truth, or seeing the truth, but also being attuned to where someone is at. And so from that sense, I feel like truth is inspiring me to be compassionate with where someone is at, instead of giving them the highest bird eye overview and say, well, that's kind of nullifies your experience, because then you're kind of, yeah, you're just hurting other people. My wife had a very difficult situation where I would say it. We had a miscarriage, and it went so terribly bad that she even went into how to call that, hypovolemic shock.
oh,
And everything. The strangest thing was, and this is kind of a story of karma, where beforehand I had all these crazy thoughts about what if I were to become a single parent, and how would I organize that? It was like, hey, why am I thinking that? Like, get out. Right? But those thoughts all led up to the point where the whole thing happened. And she was rushed to the hospital. Everything worked out fine around it. Someone could take care of our daughter, and nothing was ultimately everlasting damage. Everything around it went smoothly, except for that one thing where we kind of managed to fall between the cracks. And the strangest thing is, you feel the grace around it to make sure that this event kind of goes as smooth as possible. And my wife was really, looking for that question of, why did this even happen to me? And why am I not already so much looking into the divine, trying to be a good person? Why does the divine do this to me? And the answer I got was a sense of karma, but also a sense of, it was your destiny to die this life, but it didn't happen. Because it was your destiny to basically die from bleeding to death, but that didn't happen. You just were being pulled back by grace at that right moment. So that's kind of the bird's eye view that I got in that specific situation. But it was only months after that we could say things like that. Because in that moment, you're not going to say it. But that's kind of where you see that there is karma that just needs to play out, but there is also grace that's shuffling things and making sure it happens at the right time, where it's more, where you have enough, help, be it help from the hospital or a good psychotherapist or anything. Like, it's the whole thing played out in a very I wouldn't say beautiful way, but I hope you get what I mean here. It's
yeah, it's bringing up just a few things, because it's showing that our thoughts truly have a significant impact on reality creation, like what we're
I would
attracting in
like to
terms of
question that.
experience.
I think in opposite, the whole field or anything was already, it was about to manifest either way. And as part of that flow and as part of that movement, I was starting having thoughts. So instead of the thoughts being the cause of this whole event, which is kind of the way that most people with manifesting ideas are about, like I'm the creator of my thoughts and I'm causing reality. It would almost say like a big wave was coming our way, and our thoughts already started picking things up, or our minds or our consciousness was already picking it up that it was about to happen, and thoughts came bubbling out of that.
That makes a lot
So
more sense. Yeah.
I don't think we caused it in that way. It was just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, that brings up a lot, because I mean, I know the emotions in like the heart center are picking up from the field, but I mean, even the thoughts that are coming into our head, we don't know where they're coming from.
No.
Like we don't know. Like we say, okay, it's me thinking,
Yeah.
but some of these thoughts, it doesn't seem. They seem, either very divine or very troubling and very
Yeah.
causing more kind of chaos within our own mind and our own self and stuff like that. The other thing that brought up was, how do people get through these moments?
Yeah.
And you could take it from the perspective of the person themselves, or how we deal with our loved ones that are going through certain circumstances where they're experiencing these, let's call them traumas, these experiences that will impact us, hopefully not in a negative way, but how do we kind of shift that to getting through those things, seeing the higher perspective of these experiences, and moving into the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I think it's most important that what we already mentioned at the beginning of first seeing the relative and the immediate situation, where you are taking care of someone, where you are listening, where we're looking at the human side of things, where you're just being there for someone else. And from that healing place, something will emerge. And it's, in this case, yes, psychotherapy was involved, because of course it had a massive impact on that whole sense of what just happened to me and how do I process this. That's also a step in the healing process. Energy healing work was involved to help loosen a lot of charge there. And I think that in the end of the day, when you're kind of through all that conditioning and all that charge and all the things that are kind of in your face all the time, more space emerges from where you can start seeing a different perspective. And that's where someone else finds their own silver lining. And it's not up to me to say what your silver lining should be in this situation. And if you don't find it, it's okay as well. Right? It's not that you're supposed to find it, but it's something that comes naturally when you've moved through all the other things.
And once we move through that initial incident, and let's say it's still impacting us in our now moment, how do we heal from those things?
Yeah, what I do with the vortex healing techniques there is it's kind of a step by step approach, even where there is both, of course, the opportunity to work in a more global way, but also very specific, which means I first start looking at identification of how you're at ego level, you're kind of glued to the whole thing. It's like you have a loud television in your room, and it's very hard to pay attention to the whole room because that television is kind of pulling your attention. And in the same way, our traumatic pieces and our intense charges of emotional content kind of pull us in that direction. And we kind of become a slave almost. So first, the egoic identification is removed, it's awakened, which means that you're no longer glued to it. And then I start breaking it down layer by layer. That could mean the whole, to all the dimensions, the consciousness that's conditioned there. And in the end, even, of course, chakras, energy bodies, or even at the cellular level, or nervous system level and organ level of all the aspects of someone's energy system in the way that they kind of hold this conditioning and hold the charge that's there. And what I find is when you move through a lot of those things, that someone feels more free inside, but they also find they're no longer behaving that old way. They step into the front ride or at the amusement park where they were always afraid to do so, or they step in the elevator and at the 11th floor they step out and they only at that point it crosses their mind that they just lost their fear of stepping into an elevator. It's having moved through all that conditioning kind of naturally gives rise to a different way of being and a different way of doing things in your life.
Wow. And is it with just like focus and intention you're working with these different levels and layers and dimensions of our energetic field, chakras, aura, energy bodies, all the way down to a cellular, molecular level? Is it just tapping into these particular areas and then sensing egoic programming within those?
In a way, and there is vortex healing. I sometimes do it in a more like free flow way, where I just invite the energy to, or the divine intelligence to show me what's going on, like what do we need to focus on, and in response something starts flowing. I start reading that flow of where does it go to, and at other times in our conversation beforehand, something's already getting into focus. And you see that where the hot spots are, or what's the thing that's really driving the whole situation. And then I start more in a procedural way, work through that from top to bottom, and invite them to look afterwards, like what's the difference that they start noticing in their life.
Oh wow! Would you be open to taking us through a practical exercise on that? You can use me as your guinea pig, and dive deep into the inner realms of experience.
Of course, I can do that. It would be really fun, and it will practical exercise a bit difficult perhaps because it's harder for someone else to tune in, seeing what happens, because it happens in between the two of us. Right? So that's kind of the caveat there. Practical exercise, I would do something else if you want something that people can also play at home with. That would be different. I have something else in mind.
Yeah, take us through whatever you'd like to. I'm sure even after this recording, we can set up a session together and work together just in those regards. So we can get into more of the inner realm healing where it's just pure silence on this podcast. But if you want to take us through, like whatever you want to take me through, I am happy to play along and I'm happy to journey alongside you.
Sounds like fun to me. So that's let's do that. And if you let this open, I think about more like a feeling true sense exercise. Yeah. Where pick up something that's bothering in your life, like an issue or anything. Now we'll start kind of a meditation technique, but I will supplement it or enhance it by letting the vortex healing energy run for you as well.
Okay.
So, good to mention is that, like you said, it can be intentionally focused on particular areas or just globally. So the first focus would be to let it run for a sense of peace and relaxation.
Okay.
And I'm just closing my eyes, letting it, connecting with that, inviting it in. And as this happens, for yourself, you may name it out loud or just for yourself, pick an issue that you're struggling with. Maybe something comes into focus here, and
Maybe work, family balance.
work-family balance. And as a curious exercise, instead of stepping into the story of it or the sense of I'm doing this because X, I, Z, and because that and that happened, start looking into the here and now and curiously look inside, like, where does this arise from? Where does it originate out in the here and now? More like a meditative curiosity of backtracking instead of looking out. It's more of looking back. And you may name things if you like, or just curiously stay with it and see what happens when you go deeper. Already sense that your energy is shifting. It almost becomes, where does this moment arise from? Where does it arise out of? If you like, you may share. And like, even while you're still in it, you may share.
It was different areas of my mind, and then some in the heart, and there was others in the solar plexus.
Yeah, you kind of feel where this corresponds with things, with charges in different places. And as an extra to the exercise, because this is already really good. And like, if you were just to sit with that feeling and allow that feeling to be there, that would already be a really good exercise. Since you are already an advanced spiritual practitioner, I would invite you to go one step deeper and kind of go beyond that, beyond those sensations.
Okay.
Like the thoughts are like this Fata Morgana, where you are seeing something, but you're not really seeing the real thing. It's more backtracking of what is the real thing. Where does it all arise from? And just even better would be the sense of fun, the sense of laughter. Backtrack where it arises from. I think this is really neat. If you feel like continuing, you can still do so, or we have to integrate and wrap it up here. Feels like getting a bit deeper even. Yeah, it kind of feels like you move through something there. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah, it was most of the energy clearing practices. I just kind of bring up those concepts like misalignments in, perhaps it's like work, family balance, and then just kind of let those just dissolve completely. Like, and I'm just kind of using the breath and just kind of letting it go. And then I'm like thinking about dissolving into all that is,
Mm-hmm.
or dissolving into like creation itself. So I merge with the field, and then I just kind of let those things just dissolve. Like, you don't have
Beautiful.
problems when you're the field. But it's always fun, like, just entertaining these ideas of misalignments in work life balance, because at the end of the day, it's a story that we're playing out, and we can choose to play a different character in that story, and we can choose to pick the character that's empowering and aligned and creative, and really balanced in all areas of life.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing. But I did feel the energy there.
Nice.
So I appreciate you holding a safe space for that.
Thanks. And I like what you say about ultimately is that kind of a story thing. I would make the exception of when there was trauma, there was so much charge there that changing the character becomes really hard. There's so much pull into a certain direction. And there is, in a way, so much support from the universe to keep it in the old direction, because you've kind of, it has been invested a lot and the universe has supported the position. And now you want to change it. And it's kind of really slow to move it, to change. And that's kind of the experience of everyone who is who is struggling with psychological issues. Right? It's very hard to move the needle, even though you know in your mind that it may just be a story, or you know that it kind of doesn't make sense. But nonetheless, your whole body, your whole physiology is still supporting that old way of being. You really have to feel through all of that charge in a way to liberate it, to get it unstuck.
Yeah, it feels like it can get stuck in multiple layers of the
Yeah.
body, and I mean, for me, it's like, okay, I can feel it in these different chakras and systems, and some people might feel it as back pain.
Yeah.
Maybe they, lack support in life, and how would you tie like conditions that people are experiencing to particular areas of the body? Is there any kind of correlation between things that we experience in our outer life and what we're experiencing in our body?
I think there is, and sometimes it's very obvious that it's there, or even like typical sayings that already hint at correlations. But I feel you always have to make a room for the exception, right? If you start looking at it like, oh, you have back pain, that means you feel unsupported. Then I'm
Hmm.
going to miss what the situation is really telling me. I may have it in my mind as a possibility and then recognize, oh, it's applicable here. But there might also be not different kind of cause, or the cause might be there, but there's something else that the person needs to work on first. So I find it really important to stay in the moment of looking at what's happening. But definitely there is a list. Like if people are hiding things from themselves, it may show up in their stomach. The way you're processing things may show up in the intestine, or your anger may show up in your liver. I mean, there are many sayings even about that, right? About the way you're spewing your frustration. And kidneys and spleen are also ways that you see that the whole structure of the system is being held. So there was definitely correlations there, but yeah, I'm always open to see like what is it in your situation, what's being presented here.
If you had a practical way of teaching everyday people that don't have access to energy healing practitioners how they can heal from their trauma, do you have like maybe a step-by-step process of how to actually heal from these things, or just
Ooh,
general kind of directions to take?
if they don't have access to good therapy, I mean, or to energy healing it's going to be difficult. I mean, and there was trauma and there was trauma, right? I mean, I work with people who can still take care of themselves, right? That's a different level of trauma than people who can no longer take care of themselves and who need specialized care or even psychiatry support system there, right? But I feel, yeah, we can all tap into a sense of spirituality, of course. So we can all tap into a deeper sense of self. And there might be some clues there, but I'm not on top of my mind. I find it really hard to give a general answer there. Like, I know for some people it works really well to have this sense of divine support in their lives, but for others it feels like that would be the last thing they were thinking about, right? So yeah, I like to keep that nuance there. Like, would praying towards like an avataric being work? Most definitely, right? That's an avataric being. That's to explain that. There is in the Hinduism they have the words for that, and you may find them in different religions as well. But I kind of like their terminology, or Sanatana Dharma is the right word there. Kind of it means the eternal principle. And to them, Brahman is the divine or anything in everything. But it's also formless, and as it takes on a slight form or a slight, I might say, flavor, it starts looking like the caring mother, like the divine mother, or it becomes more playful, and they call it Krishna, or it becomes more transformative, and they call it Shiva. And I kind of like the sense that it is still the divine, and in a way, Jesus Christ would be like at that level to me as well. And that's what we tap into as well with vortex healing, kind of one of those flavors of the divine, meant for magical transformation. There was someone like Amma. That's someone who actually has this divine presence in her. Mata Amritananda is her full name. Neem Karoli Baba is also someone who actually walked on the earth in the 70s, and people still find connection with him. And they find healing with him basically by looking at his photo, working with, reading to the books, finding a connection inside, and people start healing from that. So it's not uncommon, it happens, but it may not be your thing, or you may need something more human, right? And that's where therapy comes along, or where vortex healing comes along, where there is this interplay of both a spiritual or divine presence working with you, but also the ability for a human to express and give words to what you're going through, or give validation to, hey, you're not crazy at all. This is a totally normal response to what you've been through. It just makes complete sense that you're kind of mind racing and that you're constantly worrying and having anxieties or feeling depressed, given what you've gone through. And I feel that process is sometimes equally important to have.
Absolutely. And I've got a completely different question for you. Where do you believe humanity is going right now?
And that's it's almost a political question now, right? But I think in general, it sounds really odd saying it right now, but I think we are on getting more lighter and lighter. We're improving, but it's a process that will take a lot of time, and maybe like in 200 years, humanity will have this whole prosperous and a peaceful civilization. What to my sense, happens right now is kind of clearing the closet. And all the ugliness that was already stuck somewhere inside needs to come out for healing to happen. And I could see that very clearly a few years back with COVID. There was a annual thing in the Netherlands with a whole festival, and every year that's held at the same place. Well, that year, of course, they couldn't do it live. So they did a kind of on the TV, did a rerun of all old episodes and old versions of the same concert at the same location in Amsterdam. And I started feeling the energies, and it felt like every year you got further into the past, the energy felt more dense. In the 90s, energy felt way more dense than it is right now. And going back further, even more. So in a way, it feels like the background side of humanity is lightening up. It is losing its density, but at the foreground of things is total disaster right now. Right? It's for some people, it's horrible. And I'm not even considering people like Africa, but also like what's happening in America right now, or or in war zones. I mean, there is so much things happening in the forefront that where we just need to look at the human side of things to deal with and to take care of each other. And at the same time, you see the whole process in a larger way where, yeah, things are being, densities are removing and things are clearing out. So I think there is a silver lining in the end, but the process towards it will be very difficult. Yeah, definitely something that some people will really suffer from. So it's not going to be easy the coming years.
I would call it an unveiling of the darkness that's been present on this planet for a very long time. And I feel like there's a group of us that are stepping up and just speaking our truth and just teaching people how to heal.
I think there are systematic issues are being exposed, and they require, of course, a systematic solution. At the same time, I think these things change because individuals change. You don't get a revolution from day one. You get it because many people have healed that trauma, or the group that says, I want things to be different, has kind of grown and has gained momentum, where we as a species say we want things to be different. And there is a kind of a balance there with how you apply anger. I mean, anger kind of motivates you towards things and becomes a driver for action or a driver to set a clear boundary. And it can also be used in a wrong way, where kind of your anger becomes what you start manifesting. Right? And the anger of everybody into a situation is only going to create another situation that kind of needs anger to be there. So it's also the question of where do we want to create from? And that place has to be eventually the love that we found in ourselves, that we want to see in the world. And that's a very, difficult process for some people where, like we said before, you have to look at the human side. You have to look at where someone is at. And I can tell you right now, like, oh yeah, you should be acting like this and that because that's better. No, first look at where you're at and then look at what makes sense for your situation.
Absolutely. And do you have any closing thoughts for the audience? Any things that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I think if I were to look at my whole spiritual journey, what drove it, what made it work out in the end, there was the sense of there was something larger than me that knows better than me how to get out of the mess. And that's kind of what I picked up when I was doing Reiki at 16 years old. And in a way, I kept on following that thread of there was something larger than me that knows better than me what I should be doing. And I better start listening there instead of trying to follow my own mind. Because in the way of following my own mind, I started replaying the conditioning that led to the whole problem. So I feel that kind of inner journey leads you to beautiful places in the end, and to a whole awakening process that's unfolding there.
And what do you think the goal of that awakening process is ultimately?
That's a very good question, but also a very difficult question, because I feel like we're all on a journey towards that awakening process. And it's like, again, a massive wave moving towards the shore. Some parts of the water will be there first and others will be later, but there's nothing that says you're better than I am or vice versa because someone had something arrived earlier. some would say, but it's already limitation to say like the whole thing is a play of the divine, where kind of you start at full knowledge and you kind of lose yourself in many incarnations, in many stories, in even like a 2 billion-year-old long cycle of moving through a lot of stuff. And we're kind of at the end of it trying to move out. And that part means processing trauma. So we're kind of, you're now incarnated at the trauma processing planet of the universe, basically, which says like you meet all your stuff here and we're unpacking our baggage. And as that happens, at some point you will move beyond the sense of ego and move into what you already said something about the field. And at some point you move beyond the sense of field, where like you notice the presence and the awareness of things, and even that can kind of collapse into itself and meet, in the end, it meets the divine in itself and recognize that it has always been the divine and nothing else. So it becomes a beautiful journey where, and I don't know where it leads to. I mean, does that mean that the cycle repeats because, hey, it was fun, like amusement park where you say like, hey, that was a fun ride, let's do it again? Or has that matured something? And does it mean that you start contributing that knowledge to other places? I don't know. I mean, it's an ongoing process. In a way, I think it never ends. And in some way, traditions will say like, the whole goal is to merge back into the divine. And then that's where you find the heaven and find the peace that you were always looking for. But it's, I don't know. Who will tell?
Yeah, it's certainly a beautiful journey. Just moving from that sense of knowing everything to not knowing what you're going to eat for breakfast tomorrow.
Yeah.
And just eventually seeing the divinity in all that is, and moving through the lower expressions of that also, not seeing the divine, seeing the chaos of everything we're experiencing, and really that human element. And I think that's, if you think of like God or source or the creator, if it is like omnipresent and omnipotent and, it's aware of all that is, and it is all that is, it's flowing through all that is, it doesn't understand separation. It doesn't understand heartbreak. I would imagine it's learning these things by creating like fractals of itself so it can experience its own creation. And it's like creating, each of us are fractals or individual aspects within the mind of the creator. And you could almost think of us as each as like neurons in the brain of, the divine, the God, the source, the creator of all that is, and that we're each playing different parts in this neuronal orchestra of just life itself.
I think that's a beautiful description, and at the same time, it's I always also use similar stories myself. And at the same time, I note that each story is kind of a mind limitation already to what it actually is. And maybe it's both. Like it's, yes, divine experiencing separation and experiencing what it is not. And at the same time, maybe it's a lot more than that, or it's either or it's neither of it. Right? There is so much more richness there that when you step into it, you feel like any way I try to define it kind of becomes a limitation in itself. And even the sense of saying God is everything feels like a limitation because you've excluded nothing. So there is a deep richness there that I also just recently start getting a sense of like, whoa, it's so much more than this. And at the same time, within the mind space of seeing that kind of the journey, or seeing that as we're all, this is just an enormous expression of the one. I think it's a beautiful way of seeing it. It's almost like a painter making a painting, or then stepping into the painting to experience the painting. But that again is a picture in the mind, and we're kind of missing the whole point there, because you kind of lose the intimacy of the moment there, which is always present, always there.
That's very true. Well, those are amazing words, and it's a lot for the audience to ponder, certainly. So I appreciate having you on. Where can people find you, like social media, website, if they want to sign up for like one of your sessions?
Yeah, so on healinginpractice.com, you can find my English website. I also have a Dutch version on healinginpractice.nl. But the English version has everything as well. I'm also on Instagram and Threads. On Threads, I post in English. Instagram, typically some Dutch, but I'm not finding the time to really create a lot of video content. So that's kind of why my Instagram is kind of quiet at the moment. But healinginpractice.com definitely works. And yeah, my sessions include, there's a button there to book an appointment for like half an hour. It's just a discovery call, which is free. And you can get a short demo of the healing or any questions you still have for your own personal situation. And yeah, from there, you can just take it and book a session where we start working on deeper issues that you're dealing with, or whatever else you feel like needs support on an energetic and spiritual level. That's where I'm for. And yeah, not excluding any, but already it's obvious, I guess, medical assistance or psychological assistance. I mean, these are all valuable things that we also need in life. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast and sharing your wisdom and your truth and really shining a light on what we're experiencing in our here and now.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.